those people, even at that time, when they were only handful of Muslims, each and every sacrifice that they gave, that became the result of strengthening their faith. And along with that, the progress of the community was the result. The belief was not stopped, and people continued to join Islam, and they were always increasing, making more and more progress in Islam. And because of those injustices and acts of aggression, then they had to migrate. So then, after the hijrah, the migration, more doors of more progress were opened by Allah Almighty, numerically and financially. The Muslims continued to grow, and finally a time came when those infidels of Mecca, who were the cruel people, they became under the control of the Muslims. Look at the history of Jamaat Ahmadiyya. Every trial and every difficulty that comes, it always becomes the means of the spiritual progress of the community. So it has become the means of advancement in financial situation. The situations in 74, some people who went out of the country and spread over there, they could not have gone there. And those who were having a small business of their own, and those who were having a little bit of agriculture, are having some ordinary business. And many of them did not have the resources for the education of their children. If the resources were there, atmosphere was not feasible. And when they came to Europe, many children, those who are doing MSc or PhD, or they have already done it, or they have become doctors, or they are in that field. So in Pakistan, their relatives could not have got that education, or they were not attentive to that one, or the means were not available. So any Ahmadi who has come outside of Pakistan, they should make this point very clear in their mind, that while their faith, because of the faith, they had to leave their own country. So Allah Almighty changed their conditions to better and provided them affluence and better situation in financial matters, and their conditions were completely changed through the better education of their children, and that atmosphere was created. And as a community, the community has financially and numerically, it has made a lot of progress. Similarly, when individually, when the members, they progressed in education, then within the Jamaat, the standard of the secular education was also increased. So this thing, this should become, this should bring every Ahmadi closer to Allah Almighty. And it should also becomes the means of their increase in faith. And it should not be leading to any arrogance or pride or considering themselves great. Allah Almighty has shown the sign of His being friend of believers. Now we have to become His true servant, and we have to show a good example of being His true servant. And this thing will show us more and more light. And then it would not be only the progress among those people who came outside, but because of those persecution which they suffered in 74. But even those people who remained in Pakistan, Allah Almighty blessed them. And those people whose business were attacked, and Allah Almighty blessed them in their business, in their commerce and trade. And as we have seen in the meaning of the word wali, meaning is a friend and the helper.
जिसने अहमदियत की खातिर कुर्बानी
So anybody who has offered any sacrifice for the sake of Ahmadiyyat,
या
Allah Almighty
उसकी बिल्कुल
has given him or his progeny,
दोस्त और मददगार बनते हुए
and he became the true friend of them or their progeny, and then bestowed upon them the progress. And then see in 74, when the life was made very difficult for the people in Pakistan, they tried to do so,
खलीफा वक्त को वहाँ से हिजरत करनी,
and the Khalifa of the time had to migrate from there.
तो फिर कौन काम आया?
Then who was there who came to help the people, Ahmadis? The same friend, the same helper, Allah Almighty,
पर तसल्लुत
who has got the full control over each and everything.
खलीफतुल मसीह राबे
He
इसी हिफाजत
he protected Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi during the journey in such a way at various stages,
जो
at various points,
दुनियावी दोस्त
that no worldly friend could have ever done like that.
इस बात ने जहाँ अफराद जमात के ईमानों में
And this thing, as it increased the faith of the members of the community, at the same time, as a result of this migration, the numerical progress of the community also took place. In numbers, they increased.
MTA की नेमत से
And Allah Almighty blessed them with the bounty of MTA. And through this, the Allah Almighty provided them the means of spiritual and other progress in the whole world.
दुनिया में
At one time,
आवाज़ सुनी
one voice is heard throughout the world at one time,
की तरफ तवज्जो दिलाने
which is a reminder for the whole world,
आयत में
and also to the Ahmadis.
साथ साथ
And in this verse,
से वादा किया गया
when Allah Almighty has mentioned along with the spiritual progress, with the worldly progress, and Allah Almighty has mentioned that those people
और जो लोग
and those people who are the non-believers, their friends are Satan,
रोशनी से
and they take them from the light to darkness.
रसूली फैसला फरमा दिया कि अल्लाह ताला
Allah Almighty has mentioned it in principle that those do not believe in the sayings of Allah, they are the friends of Satan, and the Satan takes the people from light to darkness.
चलने वाले
And this is why those people who follow Satan, they cannot see the manifestation of lights.
हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम
The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
दावा फरमाया
when he claimed
और मक्के वालों को
and
बुलाया
he invited the Meccans to the message of guidance, then the leaders of the Quraysh, some of them, they were very intelligent,
अच्छे इंसान कहलाते
and they were counted as good people,
बाद नेकियां भी करते थे
and they used to perform certain good actions.
हज़रत
But
के इनकार की वजह से
because of their disbelief of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they came into the temptation of Satan,
जब बहकावे नहीं
came under the temptation of Satan,
उन नेकियों से महरूम होते
and then they made themselves deprived from those good things, and eventually they were destroyed.
हकम
Abul Hikam,
पहले अबू जहल बना
first he became the Abu Jahal,
मौत मिली
and then he died a disgraceful death,
जैसे मैंने जिक्र भी किया
as I mentioned in my previous sermon.
आज तक अबू
And until this time, till eternity, he would be called Abu Jahl, his father of
तो उसका वली
misguidance and ignorance.
जो उसकी कुछ मदद न कर सके
His friend was Satan, who could not help him,
गया वो
and he continued to be drowning in darkness. And look at that
की नूर की वजह से
Habshi
ताला के वली
slave, Bilal, he became the friend of Allah Almighty.
में
And because of this help and friendship of Allah Almighty,
सैयदना
till eternity, they got this position of Sayyidina Bilal, our master Bilal, as he used to be called. As in the time of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, and those people who claimed those people who denied the promised Messiah, although declared themselves to be great knowledgeable, but they continued to be drowned in the darkness of ignorance.
जो जाहिल उठा
And there were some people who were just simply illiterate, or those who were doing so many, taking the bribes and very notorious.
मान लाने की वजह से
But when they